Welcome to episode 22 of Blow and Win with the Great Southern Brain Fart. 22, The Avenue. That's the place where we all go. If you got that, thumbs up to you, folks. Up the irons. If you didn't get it, well, you know. Anyway, with nearly 14 years as Dio's longest-running guitar player, Craig Goldy was not only Ronnie's right-hand man, but was one of his closest friends for many years. Craig and I had a little war of words a while back about my disapproval of the Ronnie James Dio Hologram Tour. Instead of taking the road mostly traveled by many where he could have just called me an asshole or a fucking troll who lives in his mom's basement, Craig actually reached out to me personally, and we ended up having a nearly 1 hour conversation that was really emotional. He got where I was coming from, I got where he was coming from, and while we agreed to disagree on the whole hologram thing, we did agree on one thing, and that was that somehow we created a bond and ended up creating a friendship. Finally, I was able to have Craig on the show, so talking with him was such a great experience. He's a kind, compassionate, genuine, and extremely transparent person. We talked, of course, about his time in Dio. We talked about the Hologram Tour. We talked about his newest band, Dream Child, which features former Dio alumni Simon Wright and Rudy Sarzo, and also features Diego Valdez, who's the lead singer for Argentine metal band Helker. I had an awesome time talking with Craig, and we had many laughs, so hey, let's stop all the jibber jabber, and let's welcome Craig Goldy to Blow and Win with the Great Southern Brain Fart. Can you dig it? I think you can. Craig Goldy, welcome to Blow and Win with the Great Southern Brain Fart.
I love it.
And I have to say, I love that we're doing this because you and I have a little bit of a history.
I thought your name looked familiar.
Well, yeah, you're over the Dio hologram thing, you know? And
right.
One of the things that I was so excited about as far as like talking with you about this, you know, was that that you really have some I mean you really are exactly what you said. Like, you don't come across as a rock star. You come across as a fan who enjoys playing music and who does it for the enjoyment. And one of the things that I loved about, you know, really kind of stepping back from, you know, because like I said, I was a huge fan of yours when especially when you stepped in, you know, around the Sacred Heart era, and then, you know, I mean, Dream Evil is actually my favorite Dio album, which is,
thank you.
I know I actually get, you know, I get a lot of flack for that, like, you know, but I'm
Me
like,
too.
oh, I can't even begin to imagine. But you know, it just really is, because it you know, that was an album that just, you know, resonated with me even as a young person. I was just remember thinking like, wow, like, you know, Dream Evil was just such a great record. But so, you know, being a follower of yours over the years and seeing all of the different projects, I have to say I was very skeptical about Dream Child when it was brought up to me, because my first thought was, you know, don't punch me through the phone. But I was like, oh God, no, another Craig Goldy project. Like what? Like not that
Don't punch me through the phone.
I mean, but not that the projects were bad, but I was just like, God, why is there another Craig Goldy project? And you know, like I was like, can he just do one thing and just like, you know, just. But I have to say, man, I listened to Until Death Do We Meet Again, and again, I will probably get punched through the internet by listeners, but I found that to be probably to sound like the best Dio album that was never made. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like it.
Thank you for that.
I mean, I mean, it's, to me, from a listener, it was very obvious that, you know, when you went with Diego as the vocalist, that he definitely brings a lot of that Dio influence in, because, I mean, it's obvious. But then again, you also are playing with a very familiar cast of characters, you know? And so kind of what I wanted to ask you about, like, is Dream Child just another project for you, or is this something that you kind of feel like you're going to take on?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Level?
That's a very good question, and it comes to the very core of what you said earlier. Oh God, not another Craig Goldy project. You know, can you just do one thing? Thank you for Thank you for bringing that up. As funny as it is that when we lost Ronnie, I was destroyed. Mm-hmm. And it took a long time for me to be inspired to do original music again. Mm-hmm. And when I spoke at his first public memorial, I said, when I do original material again, I'm going to try to utilize everything that I had learned by working side by side with the master in such a way that in hopes to make him proud. And I also was, because he had such a large network, I got an opportunity to work with people who engineered and produced Led Zeppelin, engineered and produced Pink Floyd, engineered and produced John Lennon, and engineered and produced Jimi Hendrix. And I would sit in on their sessions, even though Jimi Hendrix is no longer with us, nor is John Lennon, but these people are still alive, the engineers and producers, and we got a chance to work with them and sit in on their sessions. And I saw how Ronnie and Angelo would use these unorthodox methods to get the sounds that they got, and I paid attention. And Ronnie would show me his method, how he would write lyrics and melody lines, and how he approached songwriting. Even though we wrote together, he was also my mentor. He wouldn't just say because I said so. He would teach me why he wrote the way he wrote, and how he wrote the way he wrote, how he approached songwriting, and why. And I do realize that I'm not everybody's favorite Dio guitar player, and but I was in learning mode. I got to admit, Vivian Campbell had it all going on. He is the iconic, quintessential Dio guitar player. There's no question about that. Rowan, as young as he was, had it all going on. Doug Aldrich had it all going on. Tracy G had it all going on. I was still in learning mode. One day, Ronnie turned to me, Evil tour, and said, "Goldy, I want to pass the torch on to you," right in front of his best friend and favorite tour assistant. And his tour assistant looked at me and goes, "Oh my God, do you know what that means?" I go, "I know. I'm just now fully kind of understanding what that means." And even before I met Ronnie, I was always in search of a guy who could sound like Ronnie, because I just loved his music. I loved his voice, and I didn't know I was going to meet him, let alone be in his band. So after we lost Ronnie, I got a MP3 sent from one of Diego's friends. It was a cover of a song that me and Ronnie had wrote called Push. And it sounded like Ronnie had covered his own song. It was that close. It was just chilling. I thought, oh my God. I mean, I literally had chills up and down my spine and goosebumps. And I got a hold of Diego through his friend, and I told him how amazing I thought he was, but it was just too soon for something like this. But we remained friends, and I said, someday, my friend, you and I are going to do an album together. So I was finishing up the David Glenn Isley album.
Right, yeah.
Which goes with, and there was a couple of issues that Serafino wanted to talk to me about, and so I was on the phone with him, and then I started just mentioning off I had bought all the Deep Purple records and all the Rainbow records, and throughout the years, as you move from place to place, some of the CDs and albums go missing. So you feel entitled, to listen to that stuff on YouTube for free,
Right.
And I had noticed a lot of the comments were the same. They said they don't make music like that anymore. So Serafino goes, "Well, can you?" I said, "Well, yeah." And then he goes, "Can you get me Rudy Sarzo?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Can you get me Simon Wright?" I said, "Yeah." "Who would you have write?" And at the time I'd worked with Wayne Finley, who was the second guitar player and keyboardist for Michael Schenker. Him and I were trying to put together a Deep Purple rainbow of the 21st century.
Right. Yeah.
And it just never got off the ground. And I had, and I had worked with Doogie White before. I wrote with Jeff Pilson before, and Chaz West, and Alessandro DeVecchio. So I knew the writing was covered. And so he goes, "But who would you get to sing?" And I said, "Hang on a second." And I sent him the MP3, and it just had to be Diego, There's no question. And I knew that Rudy and Simon would be the first to say, "Hey, Craig, we got to get this guy to back off. It's too close to Ronnie. This is not good."
Right.
That's what they would do.
Yeah.
But because throughout the record, as you listen throughout the record, he doesn't sound like Ronnie everywhere.
No.
And but he has that same power and inflection where, Ronnie was the voice of the downtrodden and the black sheep of the globe. I came from an abusive family, so, I was in and out of the hospital and stitches and surgeries. So Ronnie was the voice I turned to. And so the kind of things that made Ronnie mad were the kind of things that made us mad. The kind of things that seemed to make Ronnie sad were the same things that made us sad. So it was almost like we knew him through his music. He was our friend that we could turn to. And so Diego had that same type of inflection and power to his voice. When I wrote lyrics or I would write, or some of the lyrics that me and Jeff Pilson did, or me and Doogie White, or Chaz, or Alessandro, and some of the stuff I did on my own, when I would get the Diego, it would be like, wow, because it was the same type of thing. You can hear when it's supposed to be, when we're talking about something that is supposed to anger us, you can hear the anger in his voice.
Right.
When we're talking about something that should be sad, you can hear the sadness in his voice. And Diego and I had kind of a running joke, like we would MP3 back and forth, and he would say, "Is that right?" And I'd say, "No, it's better." And
yeah.
So, and then coming back to the, "Oh no, not another Craig Goldy project." Unfortunately, nowadays people are stealing our music, so we have to do a lot of different projects just to make the equivalency as if it was one. The same people that sit back and say, "Oh, here we go again," another super group, and they're doing 10 different things at the same time, they're the reason why we're doing that, because you guys are stealing. Not you. I'm just saying,
right.
Those people who make those comments are the same people who are stealing our music.
Yeah.
And so we have to do that. We need to restore balance. And so I'm hoping that this album will help start that process, because it's a very difficult proposition to get some of the world's best musicians to give it their best performance, their best ideas, and their best, foot forward and A game, only for it to be stolen.
Oh, absolutely. And, the thing is that, I've heard many musicians talk about things like this, about, everything from having to do things like paid meet and greets to even going to the extent of re-recording their own albums. Like I remember,
right.
Hearing about that phenomenon and being like, why the fuck would Twisted Sister re-record Stay Hungry? But then all of a sudden you realize, like, oh, it's because they're not getting like a certain amount of royalty or whatever, or payout from their original thing. So to re-record it under another label gives them more power and control, but they can't use the originals. And it's just kind of this sad state. But at the same time, like looking back on your projects, like there was never anything you did that I was like, oh, this isn't good. But Dream Child to me exceeded my expectations, because while it kind of embodied that kind of Ronnie sound, like, I mean, there's no denying, like, the minute someone hears like Diego sing, they're going to say like, oh, that sounds like Ronnie. But, to me, it was kind of like, you probably remember them in the 80s, that band Kingdom Come,
right.
Where they got hounded so hard for like, oh my God, they sound so much like Zeppelin. But I was like, yeah, but if you listen to the guy side by side, they don't really sound, I mean, he's got the same quality and the same passion in his voice, but, there's one Robert Plant, and so I kind of feel that way about this. I'm like, there's one Dio. So for someone to be so inspired by him that he wants to sing like him and project the music like him, like, that's not an impossible thing for me to wrap my head around. But what I loved was that I felt like it was done right. Like, the songs were good.
Thank you.
The songs were thought out. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
And so, like,
they were.
You know, I mean, they weren't like, as much as I miss the dragons and rainbows, you know what I mean? Like, because dragons and rainbows were what got me through my childhood, because I was that kid, like you said, like with Dio, like I was the kid who, was not popular and was picked on and was bullied. But then when I got home and I listened to Stand Up and Shout, like I was standing on my bed with my aviators and my air guitar, and I was like untouchable, so to hear music like...
See, there you go. That's so beautiful, because he was the voice of the downtrodden and the black sheep of the globe. He spoke for us. He was our friend. He was our mentor. He was... Yeah, exactly. And
to hear you guys taking that, though, and I feel like you're kind of taking this into this new this place, and so I love that it's being done.
Well, thank you, because, and we make no mistake about it. See, unfortunately, I think what Kingdom Come did wrong is they tried to pretend like it was an accident that they sounded like Zeppelin.
It
was just kind of like, come on, guys, just admit it. I'm admitting it. I'm saying, because they said, they don't make music like that anymore. And he says, well, can you? So what I was doing is I was trying to bring back an era that was once thought to be long gone and somehow.
Right.
So I purposely wanted, Diego to sound like Ronnie sometimes. I purposely wanted to sound like Deep Purple sometimes. I purposely wanted to have a White Snake edge. I purposely wanted to have a little bit of the early Van Halen, some Genesis, but fully knowing that, using a new mixture of already existing stuff doesn't really make you unique. It's just a new mixture of already existing stuff. I make no excuses. Like, we are trying to bring back what was once thought never to return, because this is my favorite music. My favorite singer is Ronnie James Dio. My favorite music is Richie and Ronnie and Tony and Ronnie.
Right.
And so I feel, and Ronnie and I were friends, and there was a interview he did during the Dream Evil tour when we were filming for Headbangers Ball for MTV. During the interview, he said, "I look forward to Craig being the leader of his own band someday." And this is where I feel like, I'm on, this is my path. Even Serafino, the president of Frontiers, called me and said, "Craig, this is your band." He goes, "Let's try to make this as successful as possible."
Mm-hmm.
And that was a beautiful gift, just those words alone, because I have to be on my own path someday. I have to create my own thing. But I want to have the freedom to create the music that I like.
Mm-hmm.
And if that means sounding a little bit like somebody else, of course, some of the things that I do on guitar are going to sound a little bit like Blackmore, because Richie Blackmore was the reason why I started playing guitar in the first place. And so I'm going to be influenced by him greatly. Same thing with Diego. Ronnie, he was so influenced by Ronnie that he's going to sound like that. But we're not trying to copy anything and try to say, hey, we are the originators of this music. We're just trying to recreate an era that was thought to be long gone and never to return, and try to make it also sound a little bit new at the same time. And all those people who miss that kind of music, and want to hear new, original sounding music of that style, without it really, nobody's dancing on anybody's grave here, is what I'm hoping this will come across.
Right.
Because I'm trying to tell people that, I love Ronnie and I miss Ronnie, and I was destroyed when we lost him, and I was destroyed when Richie left Deep Purple. But thank God he found Ronnie and formed Rainbow, But, I miss this kind of music. This is the kind of music I love, and so this is the kind of music I want to create. And I'm not trying to do anything other than be myself, even though it sounds very reminiscent of somebody else.
And what I love about this too, and to kind of backtrack to what you said, something. I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine not too long ago, and one of the things we were talking about was that I noticed that even the newer bands that I listen to and that I like sound old. Do you know what I mean?
Right. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I mean,
luckily we're going back to the basics.
Yeah. I mean, even if you listen to bands like, out of Sweden, like they have Graveyard and Blues Pills, and out of Finland you have Jess and the Ancient Ones, and they're all playing this 70s inspired psychedelic hard rock kind of thing. And or you even get a band like Enforcer or bands like that are playing this classic 80s sounding metal, and I'm like,
right,
that's the music I love. So in my opinion, you have more of a right to do something like this than anybody, because you were fucking there in the first time around. You know what I mean? So really, so to me, like, what you're doing is you're doing your thing now, but it's yours.
That's what I'm hoping it'll come across, because I did do a lengthy post trying to explain myself to people. There's always going to be those who misunderstand us.
Mm-hmm.
But they also they got to understand that. Guys like me were paid as a sideman in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And now that it's our time to kind of get the lion's share, you're stealing our music. And so what I'm trying to do is, we have to restore balance, because you said another thing that I greatly agree on, that I disagree that they're doing, is that now there's, $1,000 meet and greets and,
mm-hmm.
$500 bleed seat, nosebleed seats. We have to restore balance. We got to work together again. That's one of the greatest things that I like about doing the Dio Disciples concerts, is that I get to go out on the floor and talk to people face to face and treat them the same way Ronnie would treat them.
Mm-hmm.
He was a monster on stage, and many times very scary, but he would blow people's minds with kindness and his heart,
mm-hmm.
because he loved his fans. He was a fan. Everybody starts out as a fan. That's why we play music in the first place. But Ronnie never forgot that. He never forgot where he came from. He never thought he was better than anybody else. He treated everybody like an equal and like a friend.
Mm-hmm.
He would look you in the eye, and during that time, you were the only one in the room that mattered. He knew how to zero in on that thing that made you, because we all are unique. We all have at least one thing that makes us different than everyone else on this planet. Even though he's one man and there's millions of people in the world, during that time, you had a special connection with Ronnie James Dio, and it was real.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just him, giving good customer service. It came from his heart. You could feel the love and respect and friendship, from him. All of his fans were his friends. All of his friends were his family. So when we do these Dio Disciples concerts, I get to go out and talk to people like that and tell them these stories and say, hey, that makes us family. We're all family. We're all in this together,
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it is a very difficult proposition to get the best musicians to give it their best, and their best ideas and their best performances to get stolen. But I say somebody's got to step up and go, I'll do it. Because I do believe that we're still in a if you build it, they'll come kind of era. I believe that we can restore balance. I believe that, like when Ronnie brought him an 18-foot fire-breathing dragon, he didn't hike up the prices to cover those costs. That was his gift. That was his gift to the fans. That message never really got fully understood. Yeah, a lot of money was made, but a fuck of a lot of money was spent. And that message never really got received in full, I don't think. And there's a spirit. And I'm hoping that that kind of spirit, because I worked with him so much, I learned his method of music. And now if we had talked about, Dungeons and Dragons and Kings and Queens and Rainbows, I really would have been raked over the coals. But I wanted to write about stuff, about real life, because I loved the way Ronnie's mind worked. Him and I would talk about stuff and the way he viewed the world. This was my way of just being able to talk about real stuff that we all deal with. And just in an unusual way, and get your mind thinking, and kind of, there's certain things where, the second verse always kind of digs a little deeper, and it's supposed to be kind of thought-provoking. It's supposed to be sometimes creepy. It's supposed to be sometimes funny. It's supposed to be sometimes, yeah, that pisses me off too, or yeah, that makes me sad too. It's supposed to be experience. But at the same time, I'm hoping that this will help. Somebody's going to step up and say, okay, I will give my best foot forward. All the guys brought their A game. And if you steal it, Okay, then I guess, you got one on me. But if you
Right.
like it, I mean, dear Lord, buy it for 99 cents. Pay $1.29. I realize that people are tired of paying $15 for a whole entire CD that only has 2 good songs on it. I get it. I understand that, just like me, you bought the CD, you bought the vinyl, you bought the CD, and as you move from place to place, they all go missing. So you feel entitled to listen to it for free on YouTube. I get that. I understand that the song previews in iTunes can be misleading, just like movie previews can be misleading. And then $24 later, you find out the movie sucked. I get it.
Right.
But there comes a time where enough is enough, and a lot of the musicians are resentful, so they're not giving their best foot forward. They're not doing everything they possibly can, and they are, they're turning around and sticking it to the fans and saying, okay, here's $1,000 VIP meet and greet. Well, you get this sucky little sneak at sound check, and maybe you get a chance to meet the band, and you're $1,000 out of pocket for that. Ronnie never did paid meet and greets. I hate those things.
Yeah.
I remember one time this guy came over. I met him at the Chiller convention. He had paid for autographs. I didn't even want to do it. But he also then stood in line and paid for the meet and greet, and I made the guy running the meet and greet give him his money back.
Good for you. That's crazy.
Because it's like, wait a minute, no, this is a friend of mine now. You already paid, which you shouldn't have paid in the first place, and Ronnie would do stuff like that. It's a very unconventional way of thinking, but it's money has no heart, money has no soul, but our music does, and the true currency of life is love, truth, honor, the spirit of giving, integrity, kindness, warm-hearted people. That's the true currency of life, and that's what Ronnie Dio embodied. And so I'm trying to bring that back to music. Let's try to restore balance again, and because it's getting out of hand. But if you want to complain about us doing 10 different things at once, think twice before you steal our music, because you're making us do that.
Oh, see, and that's something that's, like I said, like even someone like me who kind of, because I do come from, that older generation, I kind of forget that that's a thing. You know what I mean? And that is actually a thing that happens, and that is negatively effective on the artists, And
yeah,
so,
I'm not asking to become rich off the back of somebody who can't even pay their rent.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I just don't want to struggle anymore. I'm struggling. I'm struggling just to get by. And it's unfair. And but at the same time, being rich. Disposable income isn't so that way you can buy a mansion and buy yourself a gold-plated toilet seat.
Right.
Disposable income is the things that Ronnie would do. You turn around and he gave me an envelope that had a check in it, and he gave me an address, and he said, "Can you go deliver this envelope to this person, please?" Back when I was in Rough Cut, just because he knew I would. Mm-hmm. It turned out to be that this fan was having trouble paying rent, and so Ronnie paid his rent for that month.
See, that's the kind of stuff. Yeah,
Money's a tool to help other people. So if you have disposable income, if your cup runneth over, it's supposed to run over into somebody else's life, not into your extra little cup so you can have a gold-plated toilet seat.
Right. Well, that's so funny, because one of the things I wanted to, because I know we have to go in just a little bit, because I don't want to keep you too long. But first off, by the way,
well, I would talk to you forever, but yeah, they kind of ran these things kind of tight. I expressed my feelings about the whole hologram thing, and you and I kind of talked back and forth online, and then we kind of had this thing, where we kind of, almost like you said, you quote, like, agree to disagree on certain things. Right.
But one of the things that I loved was that you don't harbor any kind of your attitude about it was, if you're down with it, come. If you're not, don't. Like that's,
Right.
That's just how it is. With Dream Child, it's almost like there must be a feeling of like artistic redemption for you, where, like you said, like where you've kind of, and I don't mean lived off of Dio in a negative sense. You know what I mean? Like you've kind of been living the legacy of his music since he's been gone. And
Right.
now, again, like you said, you're kind of the words of your leader, who at one time said you're going to lead your own band. Now you are. So
Right.
where are you going to take Dream Child from here? Like, are we going to get to see a tour? Are you going to like?
Well, that's what we hope for, because we've already been getting offers from like the guys who used to book Dio. We just got through working with Rainbow that want to bring Dream Child to Russia, and we're getting offers, and so a lot of it's going to be about trying to make sure that everybody's schedules are not clashing. We got to find that moment in time when everybody's free, because we definitely want to make this a band. And I know that Rudy is a man of his word. He's working with a band called The Guess Who, and he gave them his word that he's a full-fledged band member. And so he's a special featured guest on this album. He can't be a band member, quote unquote. So maybe we might have to tour with other musicians and stuff like that.
Right.
And maybe the second Dream Child album will have a different lineup, so that way we can be more free to tour. And that's nothing against Rudy, because Rudy's a dear friend, and if anything, he gave this thing more validity to when he signed on with this. He gave us his name and his endorsement,
Right.
brought validity to this above anybody else in the band besides myself. So we're very fortunate for that, and so I'm not saying anything negative about that. It's just that, it might limit our ability to tour, but at the same time, this is, to me, as far as I'm concerned, this is I'm on my path now.
See, and I love that, and I know that American tours generally are also hard to get, but I'll tell you what, I've got a great basement here and a big fucking back deck, so here in Atlanta, so if you guys just want to trek down here and play to like some friends, let's do it, man.
That'd be great. I'll take you up on it.
Oh, I'd fucking love it, man. I'll even buy the beer, man. I kid you not, man. Yeah, I'll splurge, man. My wife will take the dog and go stay with the in-laws, and we'll have a fucking Dream Child party here at the house.
I just might take you up on that.
Well, because like I said, man, like it made me feel really good that you and I had the interaction that we did, because as a writer, I'm a passionate fan more than anything, and that's what you and I had discussed. And
right.
and I'm outspoken, obviously, but what I loved about it was that you didn't say like fuck off or like go into like a diatribe. Like you actually were like, you kind of extended this branch to me and were like, let's talk about this. And
yeah, because I can tell that what you were, because all of the people that call bullshit on this really comes, like we talked about, comes from their love of Ronnie.
Right.
That's really all it comes from. I remember when Wendy Dio would clash with some of Ronnie's favorite tour assistants, and because they both thought they knew what was best for Ronnie. And so now those two don't ever talk to each other again.
Right.
And that was Ronnie's favorite tour assistant and his very best friend.
Right.
And now they can't even talk to each other. And because they both thought they knew what was best for Ronnie, and they clashed. And so I get it. And you and I. And I love that, because at one point, I was almost in tears when we were, private messaging each other, when we finally opened up our hearts and started talking to each other just as people.
I remember that. It was very emotional.
I love this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, I wanted to kick his ass, but now I want to like have a beer with him and talk.
It was beautiful, and it was well worth the time and the effort, because I knew that this, there was something where we could say, hey, I agree, disagree.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And well, I was just gonna say, so before we close out, are you gonna bid on anything in the Dio auction?
No, in fact, there might be some of my stuff in there.
Well, the reason why I was gonna ask was because I was gonna say, could you like maybe snag me a couple of things and put them aside for?
If there's something you want to bid on, and yeah, I could try to help you out with that. Because I would like to. I don't even have. I would like to have something of Ronnie's just to remember him by.
Oh.
But I have our memories. Because he was such a good man, and he was so good to me that I don't really need anything physical, but it would be kind of nice.
But that is a beautiful thing, though, to think that, like, I mean, you really do have the ultimate Dio memorabilia, and that is your time and your friendship with him. That's something
that's
that, like,
exactly right.
That's something that, like, Dio was like one of my best friends and my father figure when I was a kid, and to this day, like, whenever I listen to Dio, I feel like I knew him and I got to meet him.
Yep.
And even though I never did,
Yep. You said it perfectly.
Yeah.
If you loved his music, then you knew him.
Exactly.
You said, thank you, man. You put it perfect.
But, well, Craig, I know you got to run, but thanks so much for taking the time out to talk about Ronnie and Dream Child and all that's going on, and for not punching me through the phone. That was great.
I love that. Don't punch me through the phone. I gotta use that.
You can totally, take it and run with it, my friend. It's all yours.
Okay, man. All right.
Well, look, best of luck with Dream Child and everything, and keep me posted, and good luck with interview day, buddy.
Thank you, my friend. Yeah, let's stay in touch.
Let's do it. All right, Craig. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.